Good morning, everybody. My name is Simon Hamilton. I'm the Chief Executive of Belfast Chamber. We are delighted to be able to welcome you here this morning to this our Meet the Buyer event, which we are very pleased to partner with our member Dalradian Gold to deliver today. At Belfast Chamber, we are all about bringing businesses in our city together. And whilst that has been a little bit more difficult in the last year, we're using this online platform today to bring our member businesses together with Dalradian Gold, who are going to outline some opportunities, potential opportunities that could exist for member businesses and businesses right across Belfast to partner with them in the future. Later on, we're going to hear from Eric Tremblay, the Chief Operating Officer at Dalradian, and Kieran McCrainer, Community Organiser, and they're going to tell us about some of those opportunities that could exist for your business and how you can connect to Dalradian Gold. But before we do that, I'm going to hand over to Brian Kelly, who's Managing Director at Dalradian Gold, who's going to say a word of introduction and outline what Dalradian is all about before we get into the substance of those opportunities that could be there for you and your business. Brian, it's over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Simon. Good morning to everybody, and thank you to Simon, to the Chamber, and for all the participants who've come on the call this morning. We're looking forward to engaging with you and really updating you on our exciting project. So as Simon has mentioned, I'm Managing Director with the company. I live in Maherfeld, and I'm joined by my Chief Operating Officer colleague, Eric Tremblay, who's joining us from Canada. So again, thank you, Eric. It's the wee hours there, but it's great to have you. And Kieran McCrainer is, again, our lead contact in terms of our networking, particularly on the business side, and he works in our CR team. So really the format is I'll go through a few slides just by way of sort of the background, and then I'll hand over to Eric, who'll talk in detail really about the project. And there are a couple of key points around that. The actual build itself is a very sizable capital project. In mining terms, it's pretty modest, but again, for the scale of Northern Ireland, it's a great opportunity. And then Eric will expand on the actual operating side of things. So there's sort of two ways in as such, and it's really helpful for us to take some time and explain where we're at. Kieran has spent many years building up relationships and networks through the different trade bodies and through the different chambers. And Kieran will talk about what we do, how we do it, and then hopefully again, how we can really expand on that with your good selves to see where those opportunities really sort of can present themselves and how they can be developed. So by way of sort of high level stuff, this is a picture or a photograph of our current site. So we're sitting in sort of the foothills of the Sperrins. So for those, again, who are familiar with the project, our site is maybe halfway between Omagh and Cookstown. And what we're talking about is we're looking to build an underground polymetallic mine. So polymetallic, in very simple terms, is more than one metal. And what we'll explain in a bit more detail is that it's a gold deposit with silver and copper. So again, we're called Dalradian Gold, but we actually explore and we look to develop precious metals, base metals, rare earths, critical minerals. So that's really our business. We've been in the area from 2009, and we've built a lot of relationships within the immediate area and further afield. And hopefully some of the people on the call we've already been working with. So this morning, Kieran and myself, we're actually sitting in our office in Belfast. So again, if you're wondering what we're doing as part of the Belfast Chamber, we've had an office here for a number of years, and the reason for that is, in terms of the professional services and the network side of things, Belfast very much is the beating heart of Northern Ireland, and we've engaged with any number of law firms, planning companies, consulting specialists, PR, and when we have our colleagues visiting from overseas in terms of the hospitality side of things, hotels, restaurants. So we're well plugged into Belfast, and again, hopefully by explaining what we're doing, you can see where the opportunities lie on the Tyrone side, but then also through the Belfast side of things. In terms of the actual mine proposal itself, what you can see here is a bit of the sort of the high level detail. So The first phase is going through planning at the moment, and we're talking about a 20 to 25 year life of mine. The reason why I say first phase is because in terms of the deposit, we haven't reached the end. So we're talking about maybe 3.5 million ounces of gold, 15,000 tons plus of copper, and just under a million ounces of silver. But the vein network, it continues out beyond that. So again, if Kieran will talk to things like Tara Mine, where there've been like a second or third iteration, and it has provided employment and opportunities for generations. So we're keen not to oversell or overstate the project, but to communicate where we're at and where things can actually develop to. So the project itself, as I said, is underground, and it's like precision quarrying. So we're looking to take out the veins, crush it down, and to take away a metallic sand, or what's called a concentrate. In doing that, we'll create roughly about 1,000 jobs. And mining is, in relative terms, a very expensive business. And there's a big supply chain and a lot of expertise across a range of skill sets. And what that does is it generates, as well as the direct employment opportunities, for indirect and induced employment. So there are additional benefits that we will see to the company outside of just simply the job side of things. And again, Kieran will talk to what we've been building for the last 10 or 11 years, and then how we continue to take that forward. The project itself, if we were to stop as part of the planning application, we include a fully costed closure plan, and those things will be covered under planning agreements with the department. So we're a regionally significant planning application, and as such, we're dealt with centrally by the Department for Infrastructure. Again, without really sort of trying to steal anybody's thunder, so Kieran and Eric will really talk to this. I've mentioned the jobs, so roughly 1,000 jobs. In terms then of where we're at, we are west of Ban. So if we look at sort of the historic issues in economic sense within Northern Ireland, previous programs for government, so the whole sort of rebalancing public sector, private sector, FDI west of the Ban, more jobs, better jobs, higher productivity. There's some of the sort of the details that you can see on that page. Average salary about 40,000. So, maybe 1.5, 1.8 times the Northern Ireland average. But certainly when you get over to the sort of Fermanagh Oma Council area, you're talking twice the typical salary. So again, we, I think, align very clearly with a lot of the objectives that, have been there for decades. So, we can play our part in that. And today is really very much the opportunity for us to explain that, and then allow the leverage of people like your own organizations, and Kieran and Eric will talk to that. So it's really about sort of maximizing those opportunities, and that's for people in the area, their families, but then also the companies, the professional services, the experts, the consultants, and all across that supply chain. Typically what we will try and do is we will look to spend from the immediate area, so Greencastle, Gorchin, out into Tyrone, and then across the rest of Northern Ireland, into GB and Ireland. So that's our goal, that's our aim, to build up those relationships in concentric circles. And again, the guys will explain the details behind that. And it's really all about trying to get that sort of that awareness. And it's not about over-promising, but there are examples when you look at the likes of, say, Pat O'Neill and the history of PowerScreen, how something can start off relatively small, and with that entrepreneurial skill set that's out there and that mindset, that has sort of helped to generate any number of companies, be it sort of the Sandvik, the Terexes, to the likes of the CDEs, the McCluskeys. That's all really grown out of that sort of that idea. And likewise, if you look at the Quinn business over in Fermanagh, thousands and thousands of jobs built out of one real opportunity, and then the opportunity that will grow and expand from out of that. So we see our project as being able to deliver, but these relationships then, said, to allow the whole thing to cascade and to further develop and mushroom. And that's why it's really helpful and great to have people's time so we can engage and explain those opportunities. Just a sort of a short couple of points on the project itself. So this is a sort of a schematic at the end of life. You can see on the right-hand side the different buildings and the trees. So what we look to do is to sort of use the natural landscape and the field systems that are there to try and build the project into the hillside and be as sensitive as we can be. All of those things will be governed by the planning with DFI. So the site will be well regulated and well controlled. It's a very robust process. If you look then to the left-hand side of the slide, you can see the water ponds and the water treatment. So again, without really getting into the super technical side of things, all of those things are governed by the Environment Agency through things like discharge consents. So we've spent the last number of years working with statutory consultants and the public in terms of what the project is and how we can make it the strongest proposal that it can be. And that's very clearly what we think we have and what we're taking forward. I mentioned, that we've been in the system for a number of years. We actually started the scoping in 2015, and we had a couple of years of engagement and consultation to deliver the initial application, which went in 2017. Subsequent consultation and feedback, it came back to us very clearly that I think on the public side of things, there was a genuine concern about the use of cyanide. So we've listened, and that has been removed. So we've taken that out, and what we're looking at now is just very much a physical process, crushing, grinding, and separating out the gold, silver, and copper, and then that concentrate will be shipped out of Northern Ireland. As part of the process, again, that's what's meant to happen. We're meant to get the feedback to understand how we can strengthen the project. Another example there, I think it was feedback from the safety executive, was about trucking versus conveying material from underground. So likewise, that's been incorporated into the project. And in doing so, that's helped to reduce the carbon footprint. So, we do understand where we're at in an environmental sense. We also understand that transition to 2030, 2050, the need for metals in mining to help deliver that sustainable, renewable economy, be it electric vehicles, solar panels. So mining very clearly does have a role to play in bringing that forward. So rather than actually wait for the application and the permit to be issued, we thought, well, why do we not just make that commitment now? So from 2019, I think, onwards, we are now actually carbon neutral. So we've made that commitment. We work with a company called Carbon Footprint in GB. Numbers are assessed. And it's something that we're really pleased about. And that's taken forward again by one of Kieran's colleagues as part of our community engagement. I suppose the last slide I have is, you think, okay, we've heard all of that, so we know where you were, we know where you've gotten to with your commitments, but when will all of this take a shape? So the green slide there, or the parts of the green slide, really talk to that last 15, 17, 19. As far as we would see it, we're now finished what's called the second stage of further environmental information. So information submitted, feedback, and responses. So we've got through 2 iterations of that. The company are on record. We think we should go to a public inquiry. We do accept that mining, certainly in parts of Northern Ireland, is a new business. And again, Kieran will talk to neighbouring examples where it is more fully understood. But in the here and now, we think it should go to inquiry. We think we're actually at that point, and that the referral to what's called the Planning Appeals Commission is imminent. That process itself probably takes maybe 12 months, maybe a year or so. And thereafter, we will come out. We would expect we'll get our grant. And at that stage, we will commence the construction phase. And again, Eric will talk to that, so maybe 18, 24 months, and then into the 25-year life of mine. So hopefully I've given you a bit of a flavor for where we are, what we're looking to achieve, when we're looking to achieve it, and then how we can make ourselves as open and available to all of the interested parties so that they can further build on that opportunity. So thank you for your time. I'll now hand over to my colleague, Eric Tremblay, our Chief Operating Officer.
Hello, everyone.
Morning, Eric.
So good morning. Yeah. Oh. So everybody see me. So Eric Tremblay, I'm working with Dalradian since 6 years now. Background, been in mining pretty much all my life, from third generation of people building mine. Now my daughter and my son are in mining also. So it's early in Canada, so excuse my sexy early French accent. So I will go on and talk to you about, the opportunity for supplier on the project. So you can see here is a quick schedule. So we're gonna have a lot to do building the project. So talk about around 20 months of construction that's gonna need a lot of skill. So if you go to the next slide, you can see the project that Brian did already show you. So, first of all, you're going to talk about building the road, the water ponds, all the water treatment plant, because every water surrounding the area that touch our site is going to be treated at the water treatment plant. And after that, we're going to have the underground excavation to do all those buildings to be built. Parking, as you see, the admin building is also the what we call the dry facility, is where you have the shower, the locker for every employee to make sure that they can have a shower at every end of shift before going home to the family. So if you have a look of that project more detail, you're going to see the list of items that we need to have supply. So on the construction phase, there's pretty much three phases in a mining: is construction, operation, and after that closure plan. So the closure plan has been built, preliminary closure plan been built, sent to the planning application, so they know how we're gonna do the rehabilitation of the site. But let's discuss about construction first. What's going to be the supplier that we're going to need? So we're going to do the construction from two sides: the actual exploration site, and from the new area we're going to build the main infrastructure. So we're going to have tunneling done on both sides. So we're going to need rock transport between sides for at least 16 months there. Road construction, water treatment plant installation, pond and ditch construction, underground contractor to start, portal excavation, drill and blast support, installation of temporary ventilation system, crushing for material, because all the material that's going to be excavated underground going to be crushed for construction. Dry stack facility construction and liner installation, surface preparation for all infrastructure, parking, building construction. The picture that you can see is a kind of example of a dry stack facility installation. So you install the liner first, and after that you start pouring some sand on it, and after that that's going to be the rock from the underground mine. And you can see here a picture of our actual water treatment plant. We've been using that water treatment plant since 2015, and always been in compliance with the legislation. Second one. So after that, we're going to need also process plant, construction and installation. For sure, those kind of building with the SAG mill, the ball mill, gravity flotation circuit. There's not a lot of company who did build that, but we're going to use the employee or contractor from the area with some management team that know how to build those kind of facility. Laboratory construction, because every time where you do those kind of mine, you need also to do the assay for the underground material, also the mill product. Installation of permanent ventilation, underground installation for jaw crusher and ore sorting facility. That's going to be underground to control the noise and also the dust. So as you know, in Ireland, it's pretty easy to find jaw crusher and all those kind of material. Ore sorting is more a specialized item, but all the purpose of our construction is to use mainly people and contractor from Ireland. Installation of the conveyor underground, installation of the paste fill plant. So what is a paste fill plant? It's a kind of a plant that reuse the reject of the mill mixed with cement to send back underground in the void that we did create with mining to control, the geotech of the underground facility. Next one. So again, construction supplier, we're going to need aggregate, for the construction. We're going to need steel, furniture for office, the HDPE liner, crusher, conveyor system, water treatment plant. We talk about reverse osmosis water treatment plant, gate, fence, communication, automation system, camera, and other system for security. Here is a picture, an example of a conveyor. So yes, we're going to have a conveyor. It's not a big conveyor, but it's all going to be all closed, finger safe to make sure that nothing happen, and also control the dust. So next one. Again, in construction, we're going to have storage tank for fuel and oil. Laboratory equipment, light vehicle. We're going to need, a pickup truck for the on the project. On the ground, light equipment like tractor with lift and fork. So yes, we use a lot of farming equipment on the ground to do the construction or to do transport on the ground. Surface equipment, truck, loader, dozer, compactor, the water truck also to manage the dust when you have dry season in Ireland. It's pretty rare, but that is for controlling the dust. Underground equipment, we talk about jumbo. This is a tunneling machine, a bolter for the ground support, loader, truck, scissor lift, shortcrete, maintenance loop truck, and also emulsion explosive loader. So everything is going to be mechanized on the ground. So there's going to be no really old-fashioned miner. It's all about automation and be able to work those equipment also from a distance. With Wi-Fi, you can do pretty much everything. So yes, on a project, you're going to be able to operate, some of those equipment from surface or from a safe area to operate the equipment. So construction operating supplier again. So fuel and oil engineering firm. So to do the detail engineering and also do some audit or follow up during operation. So we have no contract signed with nobody yet, but we have a lot of ongoing partnership in Ireland. Like you see fuel, we fuel all the vehicle to a specific area to make sure that we share the love with our closer neighbor. Underground contractor, the first time we did the underground exploration, we did use a contractor from Ireland, QME from Navan. So QME is born in Navan because he did start working with Tara Mine, one of the biggest zinc mine in Ireland and in Europe. So yes, those contractors did start because of mine in the area. Same thing in Lachine, where we did have those kind of stuff that Karen gonna talk more about it. Cement and slag for paste backfill from construction underground. Shortcrete for ground support. Shortcrete is a cement that you pour on the wall. Explosive, emulsion, and other pump for surface and underground. Electrical and electronical component, piping, site security, manpower renting. We're going to do a lot of, planned maintenance. So we're going to need extra welder, mechanical, electrical, surveyor, etc. And also training. We did say that we're going to train people. We want to be at least at 90% people from Ireland working on the project. We want to make sure that people from Ireland take the project and are owner of the project and work all of it. So training, we're going to need people to help us training. So we already have those discussions with Southwest College, for an example, with immersive technology. that can provide, you know, simulator and 3D animation for training. So next slide. So construction and operation, again, equipment renting. So as needed, sometime we're going to do maintenance. We're going to need a truck or other equipment. Equipment maintenance support, also for light equipment mostly, but also for the main maintenance or an overall on of a massive equipment. Spare part, fixed and mobile equipment, reagent, water treatment plant, and also the mill. Mine dry cleaner, you know, we're gonna have a locker room there, but you know, we're gonna provide some overall coverall to the employee, but we're gonna need to have those dry cleaner done for employee. Room and board also as needed when we're gonna have the construction. A lot of employee gonna be on site, so we're gonna need room and board. Housekeeping product, site security, health and safety equipment, building on site maintenance, road maintenance, a radio Wi-Fi communication service, and underground IT supplier installation and services. So those are really close to the mind, but obviously, you know, you can see the bigger picture. You're going to need HR consultant, wellness, recruiting, and also accounting, legal, communication, and PR, and also IT equipment and services. So those are also the people going to help us, you know, in the background of the mine there. So operation phase, during the operation, you know, mostly is going to be transport of the concentrate to the port. So you talk about 60 ton per day of concentrate in container going to the port. Equipment, maintenance, support, light production equipment, contractor for mill plant maintenance shutdown. So yes, when you do the shutdown of the mill, you bring a lot of people and you try to do the maintenance really safety way, but in a short time. Assay laboratory. Right now, we send a lot of our assay to Galway, so we're going to need also a lab on site because we have to duplicate. So we send also to an independent lab. Reagent for the mill and laboratory, and also continuous site restoration. So as we're going to go up with the dry stack, as the dry stack facility gonna grow, each year we're going to start doing the rehabilitation of the area that are finalized. So to make sure that at the end of the day, you know, at the end of the operation, like 80% of the rehabilitation of the dry stack going to be already done. So every year we're going to use contractor to help us doing the rehabilitation, you know, put, you know, overburden and some seed on the side of the dry stack to finalize restoration. Next. So now Kieran's going to talk to you more about, you know, working together and but I will be happy to answer your question at the end of the presentation. Thank you all.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Eric. Good morning, everybody. I think I might have been the only person who was off camera earlier on, and now that you can see me, you probably understand why. On behalf of the community relations team for Dalradian Gold, a very warm welcome to everybody for attending today's presentation, and a special word of thanks to the Belfast Chamber for very kindly hosting us this morning. As Eric and Brian have said, it's really just about the process of engagement and dialogue, of really having the conversation today with existing and hopefully new businesses and suppliers. Look, it's a new industry, it's a new sector, it's a new opportunity, and it's an opportunity to provide for the regional, the local, the national economies. A bit of background to ourselves. I work in the community relations team. In that team, we deal on a daily basis with everyone from landowners, suppliers, residents, community groups, media, educational establishments, public and private sector organisations. We're members of the Irish Mine Rescue Committee. Now that's a very important team within the mining society, if you like. We're very proud of the fact that we have the first all-female mine rescue team in Europe. I also personally act as a liaison with the Irish Mining and Quarrying Society, who make representations to statutory and non-statutory stakeholders, including government departments across the jurisdictions, to represent and appeal on behalf of the mining and quarrying companies throughout Ireland with regard to the new age of mining and this sector as it progresses through the 21st century. We also deal obviously then on an individual basis with businesses, suppliers, contractors, and so on. And on that, I think, can everybody see that screen?
Kieran, still just on the working together one. If you click on the presentation and then click forward, it should hopefully change. If not, I can just pop it up on my screen here.
There, yeah.
That's you now, yeah.
Okay. On the point of liaison with businesses and suppliers, there, you see from the graphic here the amount of business and supply chains that we've already put in place. As a company currently of 40 employees, look, we've been here since 2009, so we've got a 12-year track record of engagement and business with suppliers. Speaking from my own experience, since joining the company in January 2015, it was driven home that the company would at all times live by the ethos, shop local, source local, and support locally where and when possible. And that's a maxim that we've delivered ourselves many times in subsequent inductions, whether to new staff, to visitors, to contractors, to businesses, to the mine, could be working in the area for any length of time. And if a company wasn't able to offer, say, a particular service at a particular time, or maybe source a particular product, maybe a piece of machinery, we would assist them then in outside sourcing of that product, and then putting them in a position where they could develop themselves. So it's a new opportunity for them to grow their own supply and customer base. Two examples of that would be one in Tyrone, one in Belfast. Two businesses who were primarily used to sourcing and supplying for the building and construction trades and the agricultural sector, but who have over more recent years developed their own supply base to include clothing and machinery parts more relevant to, or in some cases unique to, the mining sector. Good business for them, very good business for us. I think in addition to that, if you look at the slide there, you'll also see clearly the evidence referred to earlier by both Brian and Eric, that we're not here looking at a single industry within the business market. As you can see, there's a range of business sectors who've already been involved with our sales. And as a company grows, we would see that supply chain grows with it. It's going to grow exponentially through construction and actual mining operations. So some of the examples that you see there range from engineering to tool and plant hire, fencing and maintenance, office supplies, laundry, fuel provision, hospitality, catering, and so on. It's really not an exhaustive list. And whether you supply car parking barriers and entry to the site, through the haulage of the ore from the site, and at all business points in between, it really is an end-to-end industry with opportunities for many businesses who we think would traditionally have probably excluded themselves automatically from consideration, but maybe need to give it a very serious rethink. If the business supports 350 plus employees and 1,000 indirectly whenever the mine is fully up and running operationally, and you're looking at a figure there for 40 employees, you'll be able to work out yourselves the kind of opportunities that it would bring. Another point I'd make then is, I think the graphic does an excellent job of demonstrating how we spread the geographical provision of business throughout the north. Mid-Ulster and the Northwest would traditionally have been regarded as maybe the manufacturing belt, not just of Northern Ireland, but in a global sense. Brian referred earlier on to the likes of CDE and McCloskey and Powerscreen and Terex and Sandvik, all of them huge operations who have their roots and their bases here, but equally so in Belfast, where we have now, since the inception of the office, the throughput of business traffic through Belfast has grown substantially in recent years. Those are primarily initially from the technical and professional services, legal consultation, environmental, PR and so on, but also hospitality. And we see that growing as the business and as the size of the company scales up. For ourselves, then, just a few testimonies there from a selection of businesses and contractors with whom we've engaged and supported over more recent years. You see there's also an emphasis put on ourselves where and when possible to encourage and develop self-employed businesses. We know how important that is to the Northern Ireland business market, and we've used any opportunities in the past where we can to encourage and develop self-employed people to not just do occasional one-off jobs for ourselves, but to establish themselves as a business and very much a go-to business for ourselves and partners of ourselves to grow and develop themselves and take on staff. You'll also notice there a reference to, and we'd echo the sentiments regarding the emphasis that we place on health and safety. All contractors complete a safe operating procedure and risk assessment before carrying out any contract work for themselves. And I think then that speaks to our commitment to being a responsible and a very ethical business partner in the new world. Look, this is 2021. And the facts are that you know, very much the buzzwords nowadays are renewable and sustainable, and the environment is quite rightly put front and centre of all business thinking. For ourselves in 2020, as Brian mentioned earlier on, we were certified as PAS 2060 carbon neutral for the year 2019, which we're continuing year on year. We've committed ourselves to work towards 100% renewable electricity, changes in operations to be covered conveyor belts, purchases of electric vehicles for all staff events. On the point of investors and people, which is mentioned there, I think it's also worthwhile pointing out how we do also walk the walk as well as talking the talk. We've invested in hiring local employees where and when possible. The 3 employees you see there, all promoted and developed in the company and our local hires. So it's not just a case of ourselves and the community relation teams of being a part from the community, but very much being a part of the community, investing and integrating where possible as a key driver for our business. And one final point I'd make here is that the supplier in the slide, in the graphic that you see there, is a supplier of PPE who was involved in the hospitality trade running a microbrewery pre-COVID. When COVID-19 hits and the bottom fell out of the market, we approached him with the opportunity to produce medical standard sanitizer. Within 1 month, the fellow was in full production, and we switched suppliers ourselves from England, so we could order and procure sanitizer for over 140 destinations across the northwest and west, including hospitals, care homes, surgeries, funeral directors, and so on. The microbrewery owner then openly acknowledged that without this opportunity to diversify, he would have been out of business by the summer. It was another example of creative thinking to maintain business in a time of need and contribute something to the community fight back. We would add on to that through the Belfast offices, we also contacted a variety of member organisations, including the Belfast Chamber, and by May of last year, we had got partnerships up with 5 different companies, 1 in Magherafelt, 1 in Lisburn, 1 in Bangor, and 2 based in Belfast, to procure additional PPE, which was then used to distribute throughout the north. So how do we work? Well, how can you then work with ourselves as main suppliers? What's next? Well, obviously it's conditional on planning progress, and we go through the stages of public inquiry and beyond. But the expectation very much for ourselves is that we would see today as being the springboard to beginning and develop conversations with yourselves as possible suppliers. It's clearly better to do so early in the process, so plans can be made and modified where applicable, both for ourselves and yourselves. We do mention workshops there, but of course that's all dependent on when or how the economy is allowed to ease out of the current lockdown restrictions. And in the absence of any physical, what I would call 3D meetings with yourselves, we'd anticipate continuing the dialogue online. But the partnerships are very key to how our business will develop, and the workshops are something that we would hope to have going towards the latter end of this year and then building on that thereafter. What can you do to increase your knowledge? Well, there's probably a little bit of teaching Granny to suck eggs here. I know a lot of companies, including several of you that are on the call today, who've carried out quite a lot of positive background research on our own company and on our own project. We have a website which is continually being developed and modified to be as accessible, as user-friendly, and as interactive as possible. There's a wealth of information on it, which time precludes me from going into in too much detail right now, but it will open your eyes and your minds to the nature of mining in the modern world and the opportunities that it brings. If you look at one of the graphics there, where you see there, it's a lot of the operations these days are remote controlled. We're looking at something which Brian mentioned earlier on, has a lifespan of 20 to 25 years. So it's cross-generational. And if you're talking about remote controls, maybe a pithy comment, but if you have any children who are currently engaged on a lot of Xbox or PS4 activities, this could be the position for them. What you can do next, register your interest with ourselves. Look, today's just to give you a flavour of the opportunities that exist right across the business community. You know, mining in this sector is one link in the chain, but there will be many other links before and after this where we think you will play a substantial part. To do that, register your interest with yourselves if you haven't done so already. On our website, there is a tab which allows you to register your company and confirm an expression of interest with ourselves. It allows you to get in touch with us and for ourselves to keep in touch with you regarding upcoming events and appraise of any updates as we progress. And this will run commensurate with the earlier mentioned roadshows if they're allowed to happen. And it'll allow us to send you out updates via partner organisations as well, which we will also run through the likes of the Belfast Chamber. For those of you who would prefer an alternative means, or maybe to speak privately or directly to myself, I will be sending out through the Chamber a follow-up email with contact details on it for participants to get in touch directly if they so desire. There's also the opportunity on the website to support the project online. It's worthwhile pointing out, and Brian mentioned earlier on, that this is a regionally significant application. We have got an unprecedented number of letters of support for this project. There are other regionally significant projects on which the letters of support could genuinely be counted on the fingers of two hands. We are now hitting not just dozens or hundreds, but into the 3,000 plus letters of support from individuals and companies who do wish to not only support the project, but be involved in the project because they do see the lifespan and the need and the opportunities that it provides. If you give this letter of support via the website, it will be passed directly to the Department for Infrastructure, who are overseeing the application process. It's a very streamlined and a very straightforward mechanism, and the department, as you'll see from the graphic there, takes all views into account. Any help and support is, of course, always appreciated. I'm going to talk for a wee bit now about Tara Mines, and Brian and Eric both referenced this earlier on. And to be honest with you, I could probably spend the entire presentation on Tara Mines as an introduction to mining in general, and certainly mining in Europe and first world territories. It's a jewel in the crowd of mining, not just here, but throughout as I say, the continent. In the last year, if there's one word that business leaders have said repetitively when it comes to decision making in regards to COVID-19 or Brexit, the word has always been certainty. We were on a CBI webinar yesterday where they said we need certainty at all times, whether it's the Brexit strategy, the Northern Ireland Protocol, the roadmap from lockdown. For all of these issues and more, business leaders have simply said, give us certainty and we'll do the rest. And I say that because when I've spoken to a range of business people over recent months about our own operations, the response has always been, look, it sounds very impressive, but it's an unknown sector to us. We don't know much, if anything at all, about mining. Where's the certainty? And mining is often considered to be something which is carried out, on the other side of the Atlantic in North America or in a completely different hemisphere, South Africa, Australia. But if we were to tell you that Europe's biggest lead and zinc mine is just over 100 miles away from the city centre of Belfast in a town called Navan in County Meath, and that a visit there would provide you with a kind of reassurance and certainty that mining not only has a place in the modern world, but is actually part of the solution for a renewable age. I personally have had the pleasure in the community relations team up until lockdown of visiting Navan on a multitude of occasions to get a better handle on the impacts of the mine and of the sector itself from a range of different perspectives. I can supply you with a range of quotes from community, social, educational, as well as business people. Possibly the best thing that I ever did actually was on my very first visit to go down to the town of Navan and actually do a kind of a mystery shopper in the town, visiting shops, cafes, bars, hotels, libraries, speaking to a range of different people simply to get their perception on the existence of a mine and the benefit or the challenges that it posed to the town. Suffice to say that one visit could have been enough in and of itself. Most people had relatives working in the mine or knew people working within the mine or for contractors and businesses connected to the mine. Schools that carried out placement programs within the mine. The training and development opportunities were rife. Sports clubs, community groups had flourished through partnerships with the mine, and the town of Navan had thrived and flourished rather than regressed, even during the time when the Celtic Tiger had lost its roar. Don't forget, minerals are a global commodity, so it wasn't just dependent on a national economy. To give an example of one sector who may not consider themselves the first port of call when it comes to the economic benefits of a mine, we engaged with the manager of the biggest hotel in the town. So we looked at the hospitality trade, and she couldn't have been more effusive in her praise. Every week, she would say, we had some interaction with the mine, whether booking rooms, organising lunches, holding conferences. In the year 2017, the Tara mine was responsible for over 1,000 hotel nights booked either directly or through partners. Having a booming industry in the town helped the hospitality and retail sector. And that came directly from the horse's mouth. It wasn't the first sector that you might equate with the mining industry, but a clear example of how a rising tide lifts all business boats. Navan as a town had grown continuously since 1977 when the mine opened, and had actually grown towards the mine. You can see on the graphic there the rivers Boyne and Blackwater, two of Ireland's most prominent rivers, offering world-class fishing opportunities. We've spoken to members of the local angling clubs, one of whom actually worked in the mine for 40 years. And the village itself is located in the Boyne Valley. It's a region teeming with culture and heritage, international archaeological repute, with historical monuments such as the Hill of Tara and Newgrange, strongly promoted as a major tourist destination. The region has won awards as a foodie destination due to the quality of its local produce. It was known as the bread basket of Ireland. Slane Distillery uses the water from downstream of the mine in the production of its whisky, and has now been bought over by Brown Forman of Jack Daniel's fame. And all of this in tandem with a mine that works away unobtrusively, but is a powerhouse to the local economy. And we see the same opportunities here. Brian also mentioned another mine, a former mine in Lachine in County Tipperary. And I think that the information here, if you look at the graphic, speaks for itself with regard to the contribution that it made locally, regionally and nationally to the economy, from salaries paid through to taxes and so on. It's equally plain to see in 2021 how we're now able to manage and rehabilitate lands owned by a mining company back into farmland, with wind turbines also erected on the land. The Irish Bioeconomy Foundation set up a biocampus on this land with the mission of promoting the conversion of Ireland's natural land and sea resources to high-value products for the development of a sustainable bioeconomy, which is both globally competitive, but enabling the creation of local development. One company in Lachine called the Lachine Training and Mining Services was created in 2016, the year that the mine was actually closing, for the purpose of retaining, harnessing and utilising the collective expertise of its staff within the mine to become a leading world-class provider of mining services and training. It's now at the forefront of training globally. In short, when the working life of a mine came to an end, it wasn't a full stop. It was simply a catalyst for the next generation. The same can happen here. If we can leave you with one quote, it's from the Republic of Ireland's Minister for Skills, Research and Innovation, all key business components, who said very simply, we need to encourage and support our industry in their efforts to find the next Navan and extend the life of this sector for our economy. But the news is we have found it, and we think it's here on our own doorstep. And we very much welcome the opportunity to work in partnership with yourselves to harness this as much as possible for the good of the local, the regional, the national economy and employment. Thank you very much, folks, for your time. And now I'm going to hand back to Simon.
Kieran, Eric and Brian, thank you very much for that. That was very interesting and hopefully very useful for members. There is a question and answer function, and we've had a couple posted already. If anybody wants to ask a question to the team, please use that. The function, you find it at the bottom of your screen. We've got a bit of time available to us to put a few questions to Brian and the guys. So please use that facility if you want to. I maybe before we maybe put some of the questions that members of businesses have asked, can I maybe start off and just say that that I think one of the more most interesting things that we say was about this is a new industry, and I think Kieran, your focus on that in terms of other examples which are not that far away was very interesting. In terms of that map, 427 businesses across Northern Ireland who are supplying into the business already. Clearly that Belfast is a little bit far away from County Tyrone. Not that far away, but maybe to some people who are listening, they might have been a bit surprised to think that there were opportunities for a project like this. To maybe give a bit of an example to some of the businesses that are listening, what sort of services, materials, or whatever are you already, without maybe getting into the precise details of who it is, but the types of things that you're sourcing already from businesses in the city?
Yeah, Simon, again, I'm trying to keep our 2 meters here. So again, thanks for a very good question. And I mentioned, I think earlier on in the conversation, I think the professional services, and there is, this reaches significant application, but we would use a number of legal firms within the Belfast area. We would use planning consultants, and we would also use sort of specialist consultants in terms of around the planning. So as well as the actual planning agent, so things like, say, transport, we have some ecologists, we have things like cultural heritage. So again, the project is obviously sitting within Northern Ireland, and in terms of the planning, actually, the lead consultant is based out of Cardiff, something called SRK. But any service that can then be brought forward through the Northern Ireland side of things, so set of traffic, transport, cultural heritage, noise, air quality, a lot of those things there, because again, Northern Ireland has a very strong quarrying sector. In essence, in terms of there's a lot of similarities around that. My colleague Eric Tremblay, we have, as Kieran said, we've 40 odd people in Northern Ireland. We have a company of 5 in Canada. But when we have people coming in, or we would take a lot of time through the different hotels in Belfast, and I think that Eric could write a good food guide to Belfast in terms of the different restaurants, taxi services, training side of things. So there's a lot of those sort of professional side that we would use. In terms of some of the security side, we use a firm outside of Lisbon who provide current site security. In terms of transport, some of the things that we would use would be, again, there's a firm out in the Craiger Road that we would use in terms of examples of the gold bars and so on. And really, I suppose after that, it's about us explaining where we are, because we think the project is well known, but I suspect really it's not. Every business has had its own challenges for sure in the last year and a half, or 12 months or so. So again, things like the engineering expertise, things like water sampling. So we will take the sample, it will be tested by independent laboratories, and that forms part of our discharge consent reporting system. So I think that's, again, a company just outside of Belfast. Waste management, certified waste services. So again, we would deal with companies around and about. And I think Eric mentioned earlier about the assays. So currently, an assay really it's a metal test. So people say, well, how do you know there's that much gold, silver, and copper? You send it to a laboratory that can do that. And that laboratory service grew up around the mine that was in Galway. So for those sorts of things, what we'd like to do again is explain what we can do, and then post-purpose. So again, it's about just putting the conversation out step by step. We would like to see, the opportunity for other firms who say, well, we don't currently do that, but we could. We have a skill set maybe in water, but we can easily then adapt. So, there's. Hopefully I've answered the question in part. Very much the professional and legal services, the PR side of things. We also spend a lot of time with advertising and the media because we want to get the message out. It is an exciting opportunity. It's a big development. We're $200 million committed so far. And I'd say a large part of that has gone into those expertise areas. And thereafter, I think, Simon, again, it's really to find back from the chamber, what opportunities that people can shine back to us. So that's really what this is all about.
Yeah, no, thanks, Brian. I think, I think from what you're saying and what we've heard earlier, it's very mixed. I mean, I think maybe perhaps some people had a sense that it's very technical, and very much on that kind of construction side, and clearly that was apparent in the presentation. But there are also those other services, and we've had a question in or a point in from somebody who runs a printing design and print business. So that's the type of thing that is not out of bounds by any means. This is it is, as you demonstrated, potentially a substantial project, long-lasting project, and therefore there's almost nothing out of bounds in some ways.
Well, all of those things, so we have documents like our ESG, our environmental social governance report. So, those documents, we would do newsletters to maybe 10,000 homes in the area to let them know where we're at and what we're doing. So, all of those things. So yeah, it's all good news.
And that, I mean, perhaps the best way, take away from what you were just saying a moment or two ago there, Brian, perhaps the best way for members is to engage, is to avail of those opportunities that Kieran has mentioned to connect. So just to maybe useful to just reiterate again, how, because it sounds like, it very much sounds to me like this is the sort of thing for, if you didn't see or haven't heard your precise business example being cited here, it doesn't mean that it's not an opportunity. So, picking up the phone, making those connections. That's obviously the best way to do it. So just, that type of engagement is obviously very, very important.
Yeah, that wasn't an exhaustive list. I suppose we could spend all day looking at the different sort of individual businesses or sectors that have potential to work with ourselves, Simon. I think, it's really important that the members of the chamber know that, like Brian said, there's opportunities there in a wealth of different areas, which we've only really been able to give a flavour of today. And I would say this, like today being the start of a conversation, and people do want to get in touch with ourselves to see where we currently are, and as Brian said, where we're looking to go. The potential that there are gaps in the market that haven't been filled yet because they haven't existed, but they will at some point come to fruition, and these people could actually fill those gaps. Like I said, the mining section of the operation is just one link in the chain, and there's an awful lot of ones before and after that there, and we see Belfast and the Belfast Chamber members as having a very substantive say in procuring some business with that. So
I think in the short term side, I think what we'd like to is, again, we'd like to thank everybody directly in the chamber and all the participants for their time. But we would maybe, suggest that we can share the presentation and we can share that through the chamber, Kieran's contact details, and then whoever wants to follow on with Kieran, that would be great. Likewise, as I said, we're sitting, looking out the window at City Hall, and when we get to, the before times again, when, and there's a lot of good progress there. I think people are starting to feel equally positive and frustrated, so that's a good sign of itself. We would also like to be able to bring people in, so when people come into this office, and it's very much an exhibition office in that it shows what we are, where we are, and how it all fits together. So again, I think we can get to those sorts of times where people can, and that's what people relate face to face, having those conversations. We very much like to extend an offer out to the chamber, and whoever would like to come in, and we can sit and have these discussions, and again, just bring people along as far as we can in terms of that opportunity.
Thanks, Brian. We will absolutely share the presentation with those who have registered, and and if anybody wants to follow up directly or through ourselves, please feel free to do that. That sounds like it's an open offer for everyone. In terms of just I suppose this is maybe a difficult question to answer precisely, but when this, you outlined the process, Brian, and you're going through a process, and that's moving along. So how kind of, once you get the green light for the project, how sort of quickly do you see some of these projects and contracts potentially being in place? And obviously you want to have those contracts or conversations well in advance of all of that. So in some respects, even though you're going through a process and that will take its own time, it is important that people, I suppose, get that engagement quickly so that you can start programming things in whenever you need to.
For sure. Well, what I do is I'll actually tee Eric up for this answer, because in very simple terms, we see the referral to the PhD anytime now. We see that as a 12-month deliverable with all of the time and expertise and engagement. We then see the positive outcome, and we're working on that premise. So all of our actions are predicated on that successful outcome, and we will be putting steps in place, and I'll hand over to Eric on that, so that the day we get the permit is the day we start work. We're not building in any lag time to figure this out. That lag time is. So, Eric, maybe you want to just take on from there?
Yeah, so as soon as we are sent to the PAC process, for sure we're going to start signing contract, on those items that's going to be needed, right away when we're going to have the permit. So for an example, training program, we want to be sure that the training program is already built and ready to go prior to the permit authorization. So, you talk about signing contract or doing some work in the next 6 months there, we're going to start doing those kind of work. So from the schedule of construction and the needed of employee, where we're going to need it, we're going to start doing all those part of the puzzle pretty quickly there. And also, the major contract for construction supplier of the big item, because you're going to have some item who have a long time delivery. So those are some stuff that we're going to sign prior to the permit. Permit, you always have a risk, but you need to step in front of those risks and say, okay, guys, we need to commit and start that process if we want to be on time on the schedule.
Thank you, Eric. Just maybe one final question. We've had it from posted in the Q&A from Rory. It's about what advice that you would give to business owners and entrepreneurs on how to support your goals in partnership, how to do that successfully. And what he's talking about there is a commitment to engage and develop more local teams to deliver across our wider region.
Yeah, well, I sort of touched on it in the presentation there, Simon. There are opportunities to support ourselves, primarily through the website. If you do go to Dalradian, go to the website, there is the functionality both to register as a potential business. It's an expression of interest to work with ourselves as a potential business supplier contractor, but it also gives you the facility to submit a gesture or a letter of support to the Department for Infrastructure. The more business support that we get, or support from the business community in general, the more I think Stormont and the Department for Infrastructure will realize that this is not just a viable business, but it's going to be a cornerstone of the new age, or the recovery from lockdown and from the COVID pandemic, if you like. The businesses will be able to say, we're interested in working with this company. We feel that it is not just a viable but a responsible company, and we think that it has got somewhere to go, and we want to be there with them. They can do that through the website, but also at the same time confirm an expression of interest with ourselves, or get in touch with me directly. I'll send all my details to yourselves to pass on. I think I want to just touch on that question I asked earlier on there as well, Simon. Brian was talking earlier on. We have the offices in Belfast, we have the offices in Omagh. But there, come the planning application being approved, there will be a very substantial piece of work going on from construction and beyond, and we're looking at there for things like office fit outs, office supplies, all those different things which businesses in Belfast can and should engage with themselves for. So it's moving ahead of not only the professional and technical services, but into the more nuts and bolts of standard business. And they have opportunities there as well, which we'd be very keen to discuss with the membership of the Belfast Chamber.
Yeah, I think just again, probably I'm conscious of time, Simon, and I'll probably sum it up. I think in the first instance, I think if people could contact Kieran, I think that's where we're at, and that can be directly, as Kieran has said, through those different links, so we can send those across as part of the follow-up. Outside of that, through the chamber. So again, it's very helpful and it's great that the chamber supported this today, and we had a presentation in the Northwest today. So again, we thank your colleagues in that part of the world as well. Thereafter, once things open up again, Eric, myself, and Kieran, we've gone out to companies and given more detailed presentations. So once we can understand, so we're conscious of communicating, but not over-promising. So we want to have that, and if we can expand and understand. I said there are any number of examples that we've gone out to an office and had teams of engineers or consultants or whatever, and we'll walk them through the absolute detail. But you're talking, an afternoon's work. So I think there's a number of steps within that, but in the first instance, Kieran is the person.
Thank you, Brian. And it sounds to me that it's very much an open invitation to talk, and as Kieran said earlier, it's almost the start of a conversation rather than the end point by any means. So really, I think the overarching message here is engage and get in touch either directly with the team at Dalradian or through yourselves at Belfast Chamber. We're very happy to help and signpost you if you want to use that method. It just then leads to me to say thank you to everybody for registering and coming along this morning, and we hope you find that of use. I think this is clearly a big project which has the potential to create a lot of jobs and investment in our economy, and it's exactly the sort of thing that we need for many of those sort of opportunities are very much what many businesses will need after what has been a tough year. So thank you once again, Brian and Eric and Kieran, for outlining exactly what that Dalradian goal is all about and giving a bit of a feel for those opportunities. Eric, we look forward to seeing you back in Belfast very soon when you're allowed to come. And Eric was saying before to me that he's very familiar with a lot of good Belfast eateries. So I think, as well as Chief Operating Officer for a gold mine, I think he maybe has a food guide in him around Belfast. I look forward to hearing about your best tips, Eric, at some other stage. So thank you very much for Eric getting up very early to contribute today. Kieran, thank you very much for your contribution. Brian, as well, thank you for delivering this. And as I say, we will distribute the slides and a recording to those who registered. So thank you very much, and please feel free to share those with others as well, in terms of anybody you think as well might be able to avail of some of these opportunities. So Brian, Eric, and Kieran, once again, thank you very much for your time this morning, and goodbye, everyone.
Everyone, thank you. Take
Thank
care.
you for the opportunity. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Simon. Cheers. Bye-bye.